Hey guys, City Walk, City Wall here, and welcome back to Kobayashi Island. This episode is a little different. It's going to be entirely focused on terraforming and planting trees and the rail lines and roads that go through some of the more unpopulated areas on the island. First part of the episode, we're working around the city. I filmed this during the making of my next episode. This episode, next episode, the one after are a little muddled and are going to be shown to you out of order, just because as I was building in and around the city and some other places, I was doing a lot of terraforming work, and I kind of wanted to clump all of that together. So you're seeing all the terraforming stuff now, and later you'll come back and see some of the things that happened in between. So this is really the first time since setting up the map in episode 1 that I've actually touched it, and I've definitely had a few problems with it that I've sort of noticed over time. For one, all the hills and even like the sandy shoals around the island seemed unnaturally steep, like really jagged and weird, and I think that's from the tool that allows you to import actual topographical maps into the map editor. Sometimes those come in weird, and I don't think the guy who made this map really smoothed it all out, so I'm going to be addressing that. Another thing, the trees that are all over the island don't exactly match the trees that I've been placing in the city, so I wanted to replace all the trees on the island that aren't in the city. And in general, I wanted more of the island to just be mountainous, so that the city feels a little bit more contained. So all those things and a few more get addressed this episode. Anyway, so the first thing I did, you saw me right at the beginning, was I got rid of the 2 islands that are off the coast of the downtown. Maybe you never noticed them, but they're there, and I think they kind of spoiled the view a little bit. I wanted this downtown to feel like it's really facing the ocean, and I wasn't really planning on building anything on them, so they're gone now. And the flood that it caused was a little fun to watch too. The next major terraforming I did was, the last few episodes I've been thinking that this downtown is actually a little too big. It's going to be tough to finish with it at that size. Plus, I don't really want the downtown to be like twice the size of the suburban areas. So a long time ago, I mentioned that the area kind of on the far side of downtown by the mountain pass, I didn't really know what to do with, and now I do. It's going to be more mountains. So, I did this because I wanted to contain the downtown, make the goal for the size of it a little more realistic, and in the process, I ended up getting rid of the lake and the river that were there too. I never really touched that river. I ended up making my own with the Kobayashi Dam, and I didn't really feel like I needed another one. So, that's that for filling up that area, quick and easy. You also saw me place down some roads to finish out the last of the major streets in the downtown, and also delete some of the freeways and redraw this one freeway so that it goes, the one that comes from Old Town and goes over the bridge, and so now it heads up and leads to this mountain pass. I also took the last of these train lines that lead out of the central station, made one of them go to the far side of downtown where there's no trains yet, and then had the other one make a stop right before it goes up and into the mountain pass. So that freeway and that train line are going to be what traverse the mountain range. Maybe it isn't the most realistic thing having these routes over the mountain. I think in real life, maybe you just drive a bit further to go around the mountains. But it's just really scenic, and I like that. And I do want to put some forestry industry up in these mountains. So that's kind of an excuse. And also, I think at some point later on, I'm going to continue messing with these, with the mountains and the terraforming a little bit more, and kind of just make it so that it's justified why you'd need a mountain pass. Maybe make the other direction a little bit more mountainous too, and just kind of have it be a very, either way you go, it's going to be mountainous. The other thing that maybe isn't super realistic the way it's done, but I wanted to do it because I think it would look really cool. Is you see me right now placing down trees on sort of what's my homage to the way that Mount Fuji looks over Tokyo. It's like a volcano on the island. I really wanted to do a volcano for a long time. And, the way I did it, it's not really much different than just a big regular mountain, but I think the main things I was able to do to kind of differentiate it is I flattened out the top. I made a little caldera inside, painted the whole top of the mountain using the surface painter tool, and you see me now, I made it so that the trees kind of don't go past a certain elevation, kind of like it's above the tree line. Let me know what you think of that. Maybe you have some tips or something to make it better. I mean, what I wanted to do was put some snow on it, but there's a good number of reasons why I couldn't really use the theme mixer to do that. It'd be cool to have some smoke coming out of it. I don't know if that's probably not possible, but maybe I'll come back to that later. Anyways, I'm going to leave you for a minute or two here, just let you listen to some music, and I'll be back shortly. Hey guys, so you just been watching me do some terraforming in the mountains, make this lake. I just wanted to give a little shout out to where I actually learned this technique that I'm using, how to kind of make the mountains look the way that I did here. There's an awesome video by Fluxtrance that goes into detail about how to make realistic mountain ranges in cities. I tried to follow that technique a bit here, where you kind of make the main ridge, and then the main ridge has little smaller ridges that come off of it, and that ridge has even smaller ridges that come off of that, sort of like a fractal. It's really cool and realistic looking, so definitely recommend if you're interested in terraforming to go check that out. I think compared to the mountains that were at least here on this map before, this style of mountain is way more closer to real life. I don't know if it's 100% how a volcano would look necessarily, but I think regardless, it's more real looking than before for sure. Another thing you may have noticed this episode or last episode, or even in one or two before that, is this island suddenly became completely covered in trees. I was going to mention this a while ago, but decided to save talking about it till now. If you've watched some of the earlier videos in the series, especially the rural ones, you might remember that the flat parts of the islands used to be fields where like these ore and oil patches kind of made different colored shapes, sort of like fields, and then they had some lines around the edges of it, and it's kind of like just trying to mimic fake fields. And I was thinking and looking at the city and realized that, you know, Kobayashi Island, the city is just always going to look sort of unfinished with this. The city has really thick tree cover inside of it, like the parks and in between buildings. And so it feels to me like, you know, based off of that, there really should be thick tree cover around the city as well. It wouldn't make sense to just have thick tree cover in the city. So I decided, you know, basically I was going to cover the entire map in trees, and I did that a few episodes ago and just covered every single square inch. In this episode, I'm kind of going into a lot more detail of where exactly the trees are, and I think the effect of it turned out really well. I've been thinking that this island is slightly in a slightly more southern part of the world than Tokyo or most of Japan, maybe a little bit more tropical, more rain. So I've been thinking that you know, it's slightly jungly maybe. You know, definitely I'm thinking it's more jungly than what I was imagining when I started the city. So you know, maybe that justifies some of the palm trees I've been placing around, and I think putting trees everywhere on an island like this, or at least a very forested island, really helps make the city's edges kind of blend more into the map. And I think at the end of the series, it'll just make everything look a lot more finished. One of the main strategies I went for when I was placing down the trees was kind of to avoid placing the thick patches of trees on cliffs. I made all these cliffs a little more tiered than before, where there's a lot more little cliffs and ledges and fewer huge giant cliffs than there were. And at the very end of the episode, you'll see I went back over everything and just put a few kind of random little trees here and there, like actually on the cliffs. Like, you know, maybe the kind of trees that somehow, you know, miraculously managed to grow on the side of a cliff, even though it's like super steep. You also see me skip past placing down trees on a whole half of the island. I just filmed so much footage doing this, and I wasn't going to bore you all because you've seen the technique for, you know, a while here, and you don't need to see it more and more as I go over to the other side, make this episode like half an hour long. So you'll see me skip past that. This mountain pass here, I ended up making the shape of the mountains much more into like a long canyon than it was before. I made the mountain stretch to the far side of the island where I think the airport is going to be, and so I made this kind of mountain range that pokes out into the ocean and maybe kind of separates the harbor from the airport a little bit. And I think that's going to kind of help to justify a little bit why there even is this mountain pass. The train line that goes through the pass, I made go through a tunnel, and it goes through those mountains and pops up right at the airport. So I think this train line is just going to dead end there. And I know, you know, a while ago I had a grand plan of how each train line was going to work, and it's just a little tough to follow that as things actually go. So I don't think there's going to be too many train lines that go into the airport, but that's definitely going to be one of them for sure. I was thinking about it. What I might end up doing with the mountains that kind of stick out into the ocean over there, that you just saw me working on the beginnings of it. I might end up making them actually a little bit bigger than I do here, and more imposing, so that it requires like a tunnel to get over to the airport by road instead of going around them. I think that'll help justify things a little bit more, and it'll make maybe the mountain pass the easier way to get to the airport. So for both those areas, you'll see at the end, I didn't end up actually placing down the trees in the flat areas that are going to be the harbor and the airport. I left them blank just so that I can kind of see the areas that are still left to build on the island, and so I don't have to like delete and replace trees as I'm terraforming those areas. It's nice just having a visual of how much more of the city I need to build, and kind of like how big those spaces are going to be in the end. So I don't know. I think that's about the end of this episode. I know it's kind of a wacky one, pretty different. You got to see the island all naked and without trees, which maybe is fun, and see how I do some terraforming and some placing of the trees. If you're interested in taking a look at your own map in a similar way, I would definitely recommend going and checking out that FluxTrans video. It's super dope, super helpful. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time in Kobayashi Island.